Hello again. Scenes are one of the most powerful tools in SketchUp. And I probably say that a lot, but this one's more true than others. And it allows you to save a fixed moment in time and then manipulate the view however you want to manipulate it, but come back to that exact same moment in time as you intended it. There's a couple reasons why they're super helpful when you're trying to create an animation, for example. And you can get very, very good and make them very complex. Creating your own itinerant path through your project using nothing but scenes. It is kind of like a movie, right? And you're creating scenes and you're setting them up that way. I use them more for analysis and modeling than I do for animations. I just don't use SketchUp that way. I use a program called Enscape to do animations, which, if you have the professional version of SketchUp, Enscape is a plugin for. And if you aren't aware of that, it's a real-time renderer. It's amazing. Uh, I'll do a video about Enscape later on, but anyway, I wanted to introduce you to scenes because I think they're super helpful. On the right hand side, so we've done all of this stuff on the left, right? All these things we've done now. So now we're going to come over to the right hand side, and we've worked our way through some of these, right? We looked at entity info, one of the earliest episodes. We've looked. You don't have the pro version, so I don't have this guy. Instructor is helpful when you're trying to figure out how to do something, so I would recommend that. We did 3D Warehouse. We talked about components. We talked about Paint Bucket. We just talked about styles recently. We've previously talked about tags, which are like layers. This one is the one we're going to talk about today. And scenes you can't really do by itself. You also have to introduce display. And we're going to talk about that more here in a second. But scenes are these guys, right? So the first thing you need to understand is right now we're in perspective projection. Meaning there's a vanishing point. This thing looks like it's in 3 dimensions, right? There's also parallel projection, which is this guy. And parallel projection is most akin to what we do, what we've done in school with axonometric or isometric drawings. If you were to print this, it would be at a scale, right? So you can scale it, and it has real dimensions throughout the project that are measurable and definable. Whereas in parallel projection, it's perspective projection. Gosh, in this one, you can't really scale it because this is a 9-foot wall. That's also a 9-foot wall, but it's much, much smaller in this view. But in parallel, that 9-foot wall is the same as that 9-foot wall if I were to measure it and dimension it. So that's the first thing to understand is you can do this both in parallel or perspective. For imagery to present to the client, you probably want to spend your time in perspective. I also find it easier to model in perspective. But that's the first thing to understand about scenes. Next, there's quite a few presets, right? And so the first is your what I would call angled or two-sided view. So this is if we're using parallel projection, this is like an axonometric, right? So there's a 30-degree angle, a 30-degree angle, creating actually an isometric drawing. But it's two sides. In this case, the back and the south, if plan is up, right? So this is plan. If this is north, then this would be looking at the north and west facades of this building. This one is looking at the north and east facades. This one is looking at the south and west facades, and this one is looking at the south and east facade of building. And there's a little thumbnail that sort of orients you to where you think you'd be seeing using these blocks. So I think that I find them very familiar, very helpful. Plan view, of course. This is the looks like west facade. This should be the east facade. This is the south facade, and that is the north facade. So I find this to be one of these most helpful presets to navigating the model. And then but that's only half of what scenes is about. The next thing is, let's say we're in perspective, right? And we set up this camera view that we really like. I'm going to be coming up the steps. That's where I want to be. And I didn't talk about this in the previous video, but also, when you have your eye tool set up, that's your height, right? And I showed you this guy here, the walk, right, where you can navigate forward and backwards or something. But you also have a field of view. So notice that guy in the right hand corner says field of view. As architects, we like to play with that, and we generally change this thing um, to force, or not force, but make larger perspectives or more, and try to get more in without actually moving through the model, right, or moving away from the model. So think of this analogous to a camera focal lens, right? So if we're doing like a 10 millimeter fisheye, it's going to look, you're going to see everything in that field of view. But most often we shoot in 35 or even 50, right? Oh, wait, something happened. Oh, darn it. Sorry about that. So I like to leave it around 35 and 50. The other thing you can do actually, which is really pretty interesting, is see at the bottom where it says field of view, you can also get it here. You can type it here too. And so there's two ways of getting it, through the zoom or through the scene command. But let's say I like this scene and I want to come back to this one. I'm going to hit the plus symbol. And I can name this scene